Hi, it's Gene, retired in Mexico, and I'm here with my special guest. If I can get my hand pointed in the right direction, Professor Gumbo from Phoenix, Arizona. And we're excited. We're counting down our favorite albums year after year after year. We started with 1970, and we are now on the Orwellian year, 1984. And so we're just sailing right through these. And anyway, how you doing, Professor?
I'm doing okay. Happy New Year.
You too.
Happy 2026.
What's
Is
your
that what?
shirt say? What's your shirt say?
Sorry, can't. I'm dead.
Ah,
It's possums.
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 We
Yes.
have possums here on the property. They're huge.
The possum is my new spirit creature.
Ah, yeah, we call them, it's indigenous term. It doesn't sound very Spanish. They're called Quachis, which is very indigenous, right? Quachi. That's not very Spanish. Uh,
Wachi.
Yeah, it's not romantic language, but we have them. I only saw one time. They're very private. At my other house, I had a little baby one come in the house one day. It was cute as hell. So I had to get it out of there before mom
Uh,
came. You know?
I'm reading a Stephen King book from relatively recently, 2003. Uh, it's not one of his more famous ones, but it's pretty interesting. It's called uh, Dreamcatcher, and there are these creatures. They're aliens, and they hibernate inside people. And when they're ready to come out, they come out as like a 3 foot long worm that comes out of the butt. And so the people start calling them. They call them chitweasels.
That was I saw that movie, I think.
You
Wasn't it
saw the
made
movie?
into a movie?
Yeah,
And
the
I thought
movie
it was
was.
brilliant. I thought it was brilliant. I watched it with Jordan, and mom hated it, but Jordan and I loved it. And I thought doing horror in the bathroom was brilliant.
Mhm. Yeah, I wanted to read the book because the movie is only an hour and a half or 2 hours long, and the book is 800 pages. So there's a lot more to the book.
Wow. Well, okay. So for the viewers here, if you're just tuning in, maybe you're following our series, maybe this is your first time, here's what we're doing. We will give a little context on the year, just briefly, and then we're going to taking turns, counting down our top 10 albums. And the professor will start, and uh, and he's doing the even years in the 80s. And then we'll do five honorable mentions. Now, from our top 10, we're going to pick two songs each. And then we're going to create a Spotify playlist, which you can check in the description below. Also, I'm on Instagram, Patreon, Facebook. All engagement is encouraged. Bells, notifications. You know the drill. Maybe you're on your phone. Maybe it's a hassle to hit that, but we ask that you do that because it really helps the channel. And so I'm going to get started with the context for the year. And what this is about is just what was 1984. Okay, it's easy to forget. So I just got a few bullets here. Macintosh computer was released. All right, so we still have the Mac computer today. The first minivans were introduced. We still have those today. The Summer Olympics were held in Los Angeles. The United Kingdom agreed to return Hong Kong to China, and we're still having ripple effects from that. Um, and this one is related to music. The BBC begins reporting on the Ethiopian famine. Okay, so later in the year would come Band Aid, Do They Know It's Christmas? And then next year in 85 would be Live Aid. So Bob Geldof, Sir Bob Geldof, and all that. In India, Indira Gandhi, the prime minister, was assassinated at her residence by her bodyguards. Another big story from India, the Bhopal disaster. A lot of people don't talk about this, but a Union Carbide pesticide chemical leak killed at least 8,000 people and injured up to 500,000. It's hard to estimate. But that was a huge, huge chemical and business disaster. Ronald Reagan defeated Walter Mondale in the US presidential election. Bernard Goetz shoots 4 youths on a New York subway who demand $5. You remember that, Jim?
Mm-hmm.
The crack epidemic. This is when we started to hear about crack cocaine. Top films included The Terminator, Beverly Hills Cop, and Ghostbusters. And our biggest hit singles were Careless Whisper, that was George Michael or Wham, I forget. I Just Called to Say I Love You, Stevie Wonder. When Doves Cry, Prince. Do They Know It's Christmas? I just mentioned that. And What's Love Got to Do with It? The big year for Tina Turner. That bring back some memories?
Yes, it does. It does. It it brings back more than just memories. It brings back feelings. Um, there's for some reason it's a year that I have a lot of feelings associated with it.
I remember we had a good party that year too.
We did. I had done a huge poster with a picture of J.R. Bob Dobbs smoking his pipe, and it said, "Bob welcomes you to 1984." And one of your guests went, and we had it on the Arcadia door, and one of your guests went and worshipped at the feet of Bob. He threw up at the. Fortunately, it was outside.
That wasn't me, right?
No, it
So
wasn't you.
I was the host. So it wasn't the
You
guest.
were
All right,
you
just
you
real
were
quick before you start. Oh, you were going to say something else?
no.
What was your take on 84?
It was a strange year. It was a it seemed like a transition year. It seemed a year that transitioned from the 70s into what would become the 90s.
Yeah. All right, you want to start with your number 10?
I will. My number 10 is a band that I discovered with this album. They'd only done a couple minor albums before then, and they became, throughout the 80s, one of my favorite bands. And I believe that you may have even seen them with me, and that is Husker Du. Did you see Husker? Yeah. And
Yeah.
so Zen Arcade, and it's like it's uh the hardcore punk Tommy. It's a two record set, not Tommy, Quadrophenia. It's a two record set about a boy who runs away from home, a young man who runs away from home. He can't stand life. He can't stand the people around him, and it's very, very thrash punk. Um, it's before Husker Du settled down, which they would do with their next album somewhat. What was most interesting and most notable about the band Husker Du is on some of the songs here, and from then on, they were known for playing intense speed punk, but their songs that they would write were they were worthy of the Beatles with these Beatlesque harmonies and melodies, and so they were kind of. I think that's what helped make them what they are. Um, this is a band that an album that influenced a lot of um, post hardcore bands, and there was for a while you could get a copy of Zen Arcade, and every song on it was done by a different hardcore band. But the the songs that I chose for it, both are very melodic. We had two singers, two singer songwriters. One of them was the guitarist Bob Mould, who kept me from committing suicide. He thought um, but he didn't. He just talked to me about what everything I had to live for when we were over at Zia Records, and I was talking to him, and he smoked almost my entire pack of cigarettes too. Um, but but it turns out that their manager had just killed himself, so he was very sensitive when one of the people there said, "Don't worry about him. He's just." This is 1987. He said, "Don't worry about him regarding me." He said he's just depressed because he's turned 30. And so then Mold got really focused and was telling me everything I had to live for. But that was so I've always felt connected to him that way. Um, and then the other was the drummer, Grant Hart, and they both were great writers. Like in XTC with Bob Mould and Colin Moulding, you had one singer-songwriter who wrote a lot of stuff and one who just wrote a little bit. And so I'm starting with an early one by Colin Moulding by um, um, Grant Hart, and that's Chartered Trips. Okay, it's like one of the early songs on there, Chartered Trips. And then near the very end is one of the best songs on there by Bob Mould, Turn on the News. So Husker Du, Zen Arcade, Chartered Trips, and Turn on the News.
Great song picks. Yeah, they were a bunch of really nice guys, weren't they?
They were, um, they were very friendly to everybody who showed up there.
Yeah, I think they came across as very Midwestern. You know, they're from Minnesota, and which I don't know if you consider Minnesota the Midwest, but I kind of do. And yeah, the heartland there, and yeah, nice guys. All right, my number 10 is could be my favorite album by this artist, but if not, it's tied for my favorite album, and it's better than the debut. This is Stevie Ray Vaughan in Double Trouble.
Mhm.
Couldn't stand the weather. I love this album. And I was listening to it with a really good pair of headphones the other day, and oh man, this album was recorded at the Power Station in New York, and it sounds better, I think, than really anything they ever recorded. You can hear every sustain on every cymbal. You can hear the hum and the feedback from the amplifiers and the guitar. It's absolutely a masterful recording. You probably don't think of Stevie Ray Vaughan as an audiophile album, but Couldn't Stand the Weather is. It's really well recorded, and it's a pretty darn good set of songs. It receives some criticism for having too many covers, but that doesn't bother me. One of those covers is Jimi Hendrix' Voodoo Child, which I think he did even better on the Live Alive album that came out a year or two later. But this was produced by the band with Richard Mullen and Jim Kapfer, and it just sounds great. And despite all the great covers on there, my two favorite songs that I'm picking are originals written by Stevie. And those are the title track, Couldn't Stand the Weather, and the song Cold Shot. So this is Texas Blues, Electric Texas Blues, which I love. Steve Ray Vaughan, Double Trouble, Couldn't Stand the Weather.
Great choices. You may have noticed on my YouTube Song of the Day just a couple days ago, I chose his version of Little Wing, Jimi Hendrix's Little Wing. God, that
Yeah.
was great guitar playing on there. Um, okay, so um, and then he died tragically, um, which is why people haven't heard of him. I mean, heard about him recently. David Bowie discovered him, and he was, or not discovered him, but asked him to play on Let's Dance. But then a year or so later, he was dead.
Yeah.
Airplane crash, right?
Helicopter crash.
Oh, helicopter crash. Okay, it was something that was flying. Um, Eagle crash. Okay. Uh, my next one. Husker Du was on an independent label that was associated with Black Flag, and that was SST. And a lot of bands were on SST, including one that featured an old school friend of yours. That's the Meat Puppets. But Zen Arcade is one of the double records that came out that year. Another one that SST put out is the Minutemen, double nickels on the dime, which means going 55 on the I-10. Um,
Hmm.
and uh, it's the Minutemen were known for doing really short songs, and they would do covers, but they would also do their own songs, and mostly their own songs, but covers. And then they did so many covers live that there were a few EPs that came out of them doing covers, like "Hey Lottie Mama" and "Have You Ever Seen the Rain" and classic rock like that. But double nickels on the dime. That's here we go. Another one with two singers. Um, we've got trying to think of the name of the other singer, the bass player, Mike Watt, and then you
Like what?
had D Boon, and D Boon was a, a big hefty guy who had a great punkish voice, and he sang most of the songs. And this is an album that just is really fun to listen to. When it came out on CD, it was just so, it was, they do, oh, sorry. Um, I just realized I had double as dibble. Um, they, it was almost short enough to be on a single CD, but not quite. So they cut out just a couple songs, but those songs were kind of irrelevant. You don't notice it, listen to it. So Double Nickels on the Dime had a couple songs that have both of them are two of my favorites, and one of them has a hilarious uh, title, and it's "Political Song for Michael Jackson to Sing," and which is a typical Minutemen song. And I remember at your party you were playing some songs from the year, and you'd put them on a videotape. God, remember videotapes? And
Hmm.
you had from a dance program, you had Michael Jackson dancing. And at one point, Michael Jackson does something, and that's when D Boon says, "I must look like a dork." And it was really funny. Um, the other one is this is the only time they did it, and they should have done it more. I know that you really love ZZ Top, and this was the Minutemen go ZZ Top with Jesus and Tequila. It even sounds like a ZZ Top name. My life, Jesus and Tequila. But that's. So political song for Michael Jackson to sing, and Jesus and Tequila from the Minutemen's double nickels on the dime.
Great picks. Yeah, absolutely. And so nice segue into SST, which had many of their debut recordings this year. And I got one at number nine, Meat Puppets. I've got Up on the Sun. This is probably my favorite Meat Puppets album. The one that's critically acclaimed is the one from the year before. Well, am I on the right year? No, Meat Puppets 2. I'm sorry, I was listening to 80. I'm working ahead. No, Meat Puppets 2. Uh, the most critically acclaimed Meat Puppets album, but I slightly prefer Up on the Sun that came out in the following year, 85. Okay, I'm clear now. This was produced by the house engineer for SST, Spot. That's the nickname he went by, who passed away last year. So rest in peace, Spot. But I love his production. And yeah, the Meat Puppets, I did go to Kurt Kirkwood was a classmate of mine in fifth grade. And I've seen the band a lot of times in concert. And there's many great songs on here. I think they're pretty well known because they blew up with Nirvana when Nirvana did the Unplugged show. And they did, I'm going to pick two songs that were done at the Nirvana show, Plateau and Lake of Fire. Where do bad folks go when they die? They don't go to heaven where the angels fly. They go to a lake of fire and fry. Won't see them again till the 4th of July. Love that song. And, but yeah, Aurora Borealis is a pretty instrumental, Lost on the Freeway Again, which the Minutemen covered.
Yes.
Meat Puppets 2, SST, great label. and this was a big year for them. So yeah, the second album by Meat Puppets. Great album cover, by the way, too.
Yes, I agree. Kurt did that, didn't he? Didn't he do most of their album covers?
You know, they all did. So I don't know who did that one, but the drummer, Derek Bostrom, who, by the way, I became good friends with his mother.
Hmm.
Yeah, very interesting. She gave me one of their CDs one time. It was great. I thought, she says, my son is in a band. And I go, uh, yeah. She said, you probably never heard of them. I said, well, who is it? She goes, they're called Meat Puppets. And I said, really? I'm a huge fan. And she and I bonded over that. It was hilarious. But Derek did some of the artwork too. So, and he's the archivist of the
Oh,
band as
okay.
well. So he keeps all their memorabilia up on the internet, which is really cool. And I'm friends with him on Facebook. So, but I never knew him. Anyway, yeah, your turn.
Okay. My number eight is a band that from Scotland that most people here in the US aren't familiar with. But I discovered them with this first album and was a big fan for a while. And that's Lloyd Cole and the Commotions. And he had a reputation of being really smart. And he was very literate. Okay. This is a guy that, he's like a college grad student uh, writing pop rock songs. And he had this um, droll style of delivery that kind of reminded you of a pleasant Lou Reed, um, at times. But the my to this date, my still favorite album by them is Rattlesnakes. And the two songs that I chose, I had to listen to several of them because I liked quite a few of the songs. But Perfect Skin, the opening track, um, and his lyrics, she looked like Eve Marie Saint. He says Eve Marie Saint, not Eve Marie Saint, from On the Waterfront. Um, and then the other song is the title track, Rattlesnakes. Um, and again, very clever lyrics. And he put out a solo album a few years later that almost matched this one. It was called Don't Get Weird on Me, Baby. And that might be coming up later. But this is still my favorite song by Lloyd Cole. They were big in the UK, but about the only place they were big in the US is on college campuses. So Lloyd Cole and the Commotions, Rattlesnakes, songs are Perfect Skin and Rattlesnakes.
That probably is my number 16 album. Probably the first one to just miss. I love that album. Even Marie Saint, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, is still alive. She's about 100 years old. So, yeah, Lloyd Cole is great. I think that's his best album. And I
I
was
agree.
sorry not to get it on my list, not to spoil anything here, but all right. So my number eight is a band. I think they are maybe tied for third most times I've seen someone in concert. And this is the East Los Angeles band Los Lobos. How will the wolf survive? Been a big fan. In fact, the first time I saw them was in '85 when they were touring this album. I saw them at the Mason Jar. My friend Stan was a big fan, and we went down to see them, and they tore the roof off the place. And they've had the same lineup. They're still together. None of the members have quit or passed away. It's amazing. They are absolutely. So, how many years is that? You know, we're going on 50 years, same band. But I think this may be this may be the most versatile band on the planet. How can I get away with saying that? Well, when you can do a song from the Jungle Book and you can cover the Grateful Dead and Marvin Gaye and do traditional Mexican music, you know, when you go through their catalog and look at the different styles they do, I really don't know if there's a band on the planet that's as versatile as these guys. Kiko and the Lavender Moon is Cuban. Absolutely. I think these guys can play anything. And on here, an album produced by T-Bone Burnett. Not everyone's a fan, but I like T-Bone Burnett. I think he's a good producer. And usually his productions work. And it's great. And you have all this versatility on here. It opens with Don't Worry Baby, which is a ZZ Top rave up. But then you have traditional songs like Serenata Norteña, and it's great. Um, One of my picks is Don't Worry Baby, and I'm going to go with the bookends on this album. Um, the last track is sort of the title track. It's How Will the Wolf Survive? And that's a beautiful song. Waylon Jennings, by the way, did a pretty darn good cover of that. And he pulled it off. And so I'm going with the bookends on here. But you have Evangeline and I Got Loaded and all these different songs on here that are great. I'm a huge fan of Los Lobos, and they're one of the best live bands you'll ever see. How will the wolf survive?
I would like just, if I may, add also that some people might be familiar with them if you saw the movie uh, La Bamba. They did all the music, the Richie Valens music for La Bamba.
So there you
So
go, 50s rock and roll.
yeah. Okay, my next one is another esoteric band, although a friend of mine who worked in a record store, when he was getting to know me, he said, "You like esoteric pop, don't you?" Pop, it seems like an oxymoron, but pop music that's very, very accessible,
Mm.
still. And this was because I liked Julian Cope. Now,
Ah,
there in the early 80s, there was a movement that didn't really take off much, but it was the neo psychedelics. And there were a couple bands in there, the Psychedelic Furs, who you like quite a bit. Um, but one of the, and then Echo and the Bunnymen, and they all hung together. And the other was The Teardrop Explodes. And The Teardrop Explodes was fronted by an English teacher who took an awful lot of LSD and had to quit being a teacher because of that. And he ended up getting Fried, which he actually titled his second album from 1984, Fried. I had that on here, but I just had to go with the one that I like best. And that is World Shut Your Mouth. And on World Shut Your, it's funny because he called the album World Shut Your Mouth, but a couple years later, he made an album that had the song World Shut Your Mouth on it. Um, and so he probably forgot that he had written it because, like I said, his mind was pretty messed up. I don't know what he's doing these days. I know that he called himself the Arch Druid, for Druid, because he was really into ancient English history and Stonehenge and all. And he got progressively more weird as time went on. And he made one album that was just, well, it's kind of a Sid Barrett kind of album. But this was when he was still making musically coherent stuff. And very, very fun if you like musically coherent, weird music. If you're looking for the weird, you got Julian Cope. And so the two songs that I chose, I mean, I love the whole album, but the two songs were easy. Elegant Chaos, where he says, you know, uh, people I see, I can remember the lyrics here, just remind me of mooing like a cow in the grass. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with being a cow anyway, but people are people with the added uh, example of the spoken word. It gets in the way. So, and I feel more like a man when I get with the herd. Um, and so that was, kind of pointing to his weirdness to come. That's Elegant Chaos, beautiful melody. Then there's a rocker that has a staccato synth on it called Collie Kibber's Birthday, and it has a single line that is just makes the whole song worthwhile. Like lions, we cling to our pride. Let that sink in. Like
Oh,
lions, we cling to our pride. Um, so yeah, again, remember he was an English teacher, so he was kind of he might have forgotten everything he learned about literature, but he didn't forget what he learned about um, music, and that's Julian Cope, "World Shut Your Mouth." Songs "Elegant Chaos" and "Collie Kibber's Birthday."
yeah, nice inspired pick. I think I kind of forgot about that album, to be honest with you. But yeah, you introduced me to him. And there's one album of his that I love, but I won't
I
spoil it.
know you wrote a review on All Music that was you raved about it
Oh, did I? You read that?
several times. Yep.
Yeah. But I think that was came out in 90, right?
Uh, I think it did, either 89 or 90. Um, but we'll get to it in time.
Yeah. So great pick. My number seven. Uh, One of the best videos ever. Gonna go with the Talking Heads. Stop Making
Mm.
Sense. But I want to emphasize the 2023 edition because, and somewhere I have, I should have pulled that out. Somewhere I have, wonder if I can find it real quick here, but somewhere I have the original uh, booklet that came with the vinyl. I've always kept it. And yeah, I can't find it here, but there was a really nice booklet that came with the vinyl when I first bought that. And when I sold the album, I kept the booklet, which is probably rude, but that's what I did. And I still have that. And yeah, love this. We saw, as we talked about on other episodes. Sorry, I've got some allergies here. Something's blooming here in town. And yeah, I we saw this tour. It was fantastic. But when the vinyl first came out, they didn't have the running order correct, and they didn't have the whole show. They had Swamp as the second song on here. And now, if you watch the video, that doesn't make sense because he comes out in a suit later. So I'm not a big fan of that original lineup, but they did correct it. And so that's why it's on my top 10 now, because there's a 2023 edition that has 18 songs, full running order in sequence. And that's the way to listen to this album. Uh, yeah, it's great. I prefer watching it over listening to it. But I'm going to go with deeper tracks because the show kind of builds and builds and builds. But one track I knew I wanted right away. So I didn't, when I did Speaking in Tongues, I omitted this song because I prefer the live version of Girlfriend is Better. I think that's the one song that's really improved live. And then the next song on the album, right after Girlfriend is Better, is Take Me to the River.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
I
Green.
also I also love this live version. I think I'm picking these two songs because I think I prefer these versions over the studio versions, and they're consecutive on the album. But yeah, we've talked at length about the Talking Heads, one of my favorite bands. And so that's it.
I totally agree with you about "Girlfriend Is Better." It's my favorite song from the album, um, and this is one of the it's like one of the top 15 that should have got in there, but there were so many good albums that year. And I
Hmm.
knew you were going to pick it, but I didn't know you were going to pick Girlfriend Is Better, but I'm glad that you did. Um, yeah, it is one of the great live albums in its long version. It truly is one of the great live albums. So I'm really glad that you put that in there. All right, I've got an artist who, for a while, was being played to death. Um, and I had to actually step away from the album for a little while to be able to listen to it objectively again. and that is Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. And having not listened to it for a while, I realized that the two hits from it, the two biggest hits, Born in the USA and Dancing in the Dark, were two of the best songs on there. I just had heard them too much for a while. You know what that's like. Um, and just a little comment about both. Um, Born in the USA was uh, the was a song that was a huge hit because Ronald Reagan quoted it, and that pissed Springsteen off because it's not a jingoistic song at all. You might say it's a patriotic song if you agree that a patriot can argue with the country, and that's what it does. It's about the returning Vietnam War vets. Springsteen had plenty of friends who were, and about they come back to America, and it's an America that doesn't welcome them anymore. And and it's just really it's a really dynamic song. Born in the USA, born in the USA. I'm a cool rock daddy in the USA. That's one of the songs. The other one, um, Springsteen's manager, was that Mike Appel at the time? No, no.
Yeah.
Who was? Yeah, he
Or
said
Landau, one of the two.
it was John Landau. John Landau said, "This is a great album, Bruce, but you need a hit. You need a, a radio single." And so Springsteen, being the consummate musician that he was, went into a room and came out a couple hours later with a song called "Dancing in the Dark," and it's again a very catchy song, um, kind of embarrassing music video where Springsteen is doing dancing up on the stage and he's not really dancing, he's just sort of dancing, and then he pulls a girl up there with him. And you know something, he started doing that on every show of the tour, and it's like, come on, Bruce, come on. And and we saw two shows from this tour, right? From or no, that was from later, but Born
Yeah.
in the USA was a great album, great songs. It had as many hits as Michael Jackson's album from the same year, and so I mean, he was competing with Michael Jackson, which isn't necessarily a good thing. But two really great songs, "Born in the USA" and "Dancing in the Dark" from Bruce Springsteen's "Born in the USA," which is notable for the fact that it has a cover with Bruce Springsteen's butt on it.
It's a great cover. That and the Meat Puppets are two really great, completely different, but I mean, two really great album covers. Truly iconic, yeah. And I think it also appealed to his female fans because
Yes, yes.
Springsteen was building a female audience at this time. I think he had a predominantly male audience. And I think that's true. I don't have any evidence to support that, but I believe that Springsteen was increasing his female audience over the years, and this one really didn't hurt. Didn't hurt to
Yeah.
have those blue jeans on there.
And
Yeah, great essay.
he was a rough and tough, good-looking guy. It's really funny because in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, when he inducted Jackson Browne, he talked about how when he and Jackson Browne kind of came up together, not being super famous, but they did a lot of the same tour circuits. And he said, and the E Street Band and me, we just absolutely had guys watching us. Our fan base, it was all guys. You looked out there and it was guys. And I said to the band, "What's wrong with us, guys?" And Jackson Browne, he would come out and it was all girls. The girls all liked Jackson Browne. And so then at the end, he said, "And he's still better looking than me." So, that was Bruce talking about the difference between him and Jackson Browne. So, yeah, Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA.
And one piece of evidence I guess I have for that is when we saw the tour in 85, the following year. Um, if I can be honest, I've never seen more good-looking women at a concert in my life. And they were coming into the men's room, I remember, because the women's room had a huge line out there. So they just came into the men's room. And yeah, it was, there were lots of party girls at that show. I remember that. Yeah, it was a great
And
show.
Bruce slept with all of them.
What's that?
Bruce slept with all of them.
Ah! Well, I have another live album at number seven, which you tipped early last year, recorded in 83, but released in 84. I now have my Van Morrison back on the list. I had not put his last couple albums on my top 10 or honorable mentions because I knew I was going to come in with this one. Beautiful Vision, great album. You had that on your top 10, I believe.
Mhm.
But I prefer some of these live versions. And live at the Grand Opera House, Belfast, 1984. It's Van Morrison's second live album. And when I was reading up on it today, I didn't really think about it. I never thought about it consciously. But this is his second live album, and it has no repeat songs from It's Too Late to Stop Now because he did all material from his last four albums. So there are no songs on here that were on that album. So you have a completely fresh batch of songs, and it's great. I like this idea of him just doing his recent material and the band on here. I think that's what really makes it. I mean, you have David Hayes on bass, and is it Peter Van Hook on drums, I believe. And you have Mark Isham on trumpet and Pee Wee Ellis on saxophones and flute. And you have these great backup singers. Let's see if I can remember them. Carolyn Dennis, Blanca Thornton. I forgot the other one. But I've talked before about how great the backup vocalists are on here. And then, of course, Van, he's a musician as well on guitar and sax. And then there's a couple other keyboard players. I can't remember their name, but John Allaire maybe on organ. Um, this is a crackerjack band. This is as fine a band as Morrison's ever had, and he would work with David Hayes a lot on bass. Consummate bass player, don't you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. David Hayes was with him as early as the beginning of the 1970s. And though he didn't stick with him constantly, he kept coming back and being with him. So,
Now, because you picked a song last year, or last week, I should say, for the previous year, and tipped your hand on this, it was one of my picks. I went with two different songs. You had picked Ravon John Dunn, which would have been a pick of mine. But since I already knew you picked that one, I was like, oh, great. I get to pick two fresh songs. So I'm going to go with Haunts of Ancient Peace, which I think is a lovely rendition, and then Van Loos Stairway, which is transcendent, I would say, transcendent. The whole band is in fine form. As often happens with Van Morrison, his shows get better as the band really begins to lock in. So um, I skipped over the first couple tracks and went with the middle of the album. Live at the Grand Opera House, Belfast, one of my favorite Van Morrison albums.
when you make the playlist, are you going to be using the honorable mentions? Because my choice was an honorable mention, Ravon John Donne, Ravon Part Two.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Well, too late now. But
Too
I
late to
already put
stop.
it on the honorable mentions playlist because we have a,
Oh, okay,
so we'll still get it on there. But yeah, but I wanted to get as many songs as possible on our playlists.
sure. Okay, my number five. It is this is the album that pretty much broke this band, largely because of them performing songs from it at the uh, Live Aid, and that's U2, The Unforgettable Fire. Some brilliant, brilliant production by Dan Lanois on here, um, and some great songs. And to me, this album went up a level above their previous three albums. Okay, the previous three albums had great songs, but this one, it's like caused my eyes to open wide. And wow, I didn't know U2 could be this good. And that is The Unforgettable Fire. There was, of course, the massive hit about Martin Luther King, Pride in the Name of Love. But another song that is possibly even better is a song about heroin addiction, and that is Bad. Okay, so Pride in the Name of Love and Bad, and from U2, The Unforgettable Fire. I don't think I need to say much more about it because everyone knows who U2 is.
Yeah, great. No argument there at all. My number five will surprise you. I think it will surprise you because all the critics say this was a step down from their debut. And to me, it's a step up from their debut. I love Fugazi by Marillion. This, I think this is my favorite Marillion album. I also like Clutching at Straws a lot. But, it was, in reading up on it, I guess it was rushed. They were way behind schedule. It seems like the whole world hears this as a bit of a sophomore slump. But I don't. It was still produced by Nick Tauber. I thought Fish's lyrics were still sharp as hell. Um, it's a little bit, maybe it's a little bit darker. I don't know. But there's something about this album that I personally love. And I don't think anyone concurs with me, but let's see, what did it get? Like 4 stars on All Music? Let me see here. Yeah, it got 4 stars. Um, I I disagree. I love it. Starting with the opening track, Assassin. It's just a great album all the way through. To me, it sounds great. Steve Rothery was unhappy with his guitar sound on the album, but everything sounds wonderful to me. And my song picks might surprise you, might surprise you. Right in the middle of the album are a couple songs called Jigsaw and Emerald Lies. I love both of those songs. I'm going to go with Emerald Lies, but it was close. Jigsaw talks about picking up the pieces of the ricochet. But Emerald Lies is a really great song. And then I think my favorite song on the album is the closer and title track, Fugazi. And do you realize this world is totally Fugazi? I love Fugazi. What a great song. I was listening to it the other day and just singing along with it and rocking out. It's great. And yeah, and then I kind of go hit and miss with the Marillion over the rest of their career. But this album, Fugazi, might just be my personal favorite. Yep, I'm out of step, but I'm sticking to my guns.
Well, Gene, you're not out of step with everyone. As a committed Marillion fan, first of all, on Marillion fan sites, there are other people who think that Fugazi is the best one. Yes, they are in the minority, but they're a very loud and boisterous minority.
Hmm.
And one of them is a personal friend of mine. I would call him a friend because after all these years, after meeting him in London, we still communicate regularly. And that is Rich Harding, who was the singer for Almost Eden. And he's been in several Marillion tribute bands, both Fish tribute bands and H tribute bands. Um, and he insists that Incubus is the I'm sorry, that Fugazi is the better album of the two. That the first album was really good, but it was derivative of Genesis, as we mentioned, and he feels that they came into their own sound with Fugazi. Fugazi, of course, means totally fucked up. It was a song. It was a phrase that was used by Vietnam vets, which was kind of like FUBAR. And so when he says this world is totally Fugazi, um, Fish was manic at this time, and he was drinking heavily, but that only added to his the venom in his songs. I agree with you that it is. I agree that it's a better album than Script for a Jester's Tear, um, and it's also the first album that had the president on it, Ian Mosley, President Ian Mosley on drums.
Mhm.
They and their drummer was one of the original members of the band, but he wasn't able to keep up quality wise. And Ian Mosley began as a drummer for Steve Hackett, and then
Oh,
he came in, and they actually had like two drummers in between. But this is 1984. Mosley joined, and the band has been exactly the same five members ever since. So clearly, it works. So you made a fantastic choice there, Gene,
thank you.
and don't feel guilty about it because you are in the minority, but it is a significant minority.
Okay.
Okay, my number four is Van Morrison, Sense of Wonder.
Mm.
And this was for a while in the mid 1980s. This was a what do you call CD? You take it into a shop, because you want to hear the quality of it. A demo CD, but Van was starting to move a little bit out of the kind of new agey stuff that he had done, that he emphasized on Live at the Grand Opera House, Belfast. And he was bringing in more Celtic sounds, but also he was bringing in American R&B. He was starting to stretch out. And Gene, you and your ex-wife bought me as a gift for introducing the two of you an autographed picture from the sessions, and I still have it framed on my wall in my music room. Um, and the it has some interesting songs on it, including Stevie Wonder cover, not Stevie Wonder. I'm sorry, Ray Charles cover.
Huh.
Um, and but
Wrong blind R&B singer.
no, I feel it was a Jose Feliciano. Okay, so it has Core Down Alla Rambo, which was a really up tempo opener. And of course, Rambo had a terrific writer's block. And so Van sings, I was core down a la Rambo, and I wish my writing would come. But then the beautiful, beautiful song, the title track, A Sense of Wonder, where the production of the sound, Gene, I don't know how to say it, but the music sounds like the autumn. It sounds like the leaves turning in the autumn. He manages to do that not just with the lyrics, but with the music, and um, he's at one point on it he sings, "You may call my love Sophia, wisdom, but I call my love philosophy, the love of wisdom." Um, and then he starts kind of improvising, talking about old days, going out in the woods in Ireland, in the fall when the leaves are changing, and going into places and having you know um, gravy rings, barnbracks, and different types of Irish food. So just a fantastic song. It's a song that in 7 minutes could almost be a 30-minute song. It has so much information in it and beautiful information. So A Sense of Wonder by Van Morrison with Tore Down Al Rambo and A Sense of Wonder.
Oh, yeah, great song picks. Several of my favorite Van Morrison songs are on that album. My number four is REM Reckoning. And it's kind of debut part two because it was also produced by Don Dixon and Mitch Easter. And it's great again. Uh, is it a step down from Murmur? Ever so slightly, but not by much. For a long time, I liked it equally. Now I would say the debute's slightly better, but it's really almost even Steven. This is as good a sophomore album as you can expect. Sounds great again, and it's got a little bit different feel. Um, let's see, I was reading on it today, and some critics said it was a little bit less airy, I think was the word they used. And I thought that was a good description because Murmur kind of floats in a way. I don't know how to describe it. It has a lightness of touch, and this one's a little bit more terrestrial, I guess. And but I like it a lot. And so my songs, we've talked enough about REM, and they're one of the best known 80s bands, so I'm not going to talk at length about it, but I'm going to go with South Central Rain, which was a single, and Pretty Persuasion.
Exactly the two songs that I would choose from my number two album, REM Reckoning.
Ah,
Okay, those are the two I would choose also, South Central Rain and Pretty Persuasion. I love in Pretty
now
Persuasion.
hang on just a second though, because
Okay,
that was my number four. So you should
and this
be
is
on
my,
number three now.
oh, oh yeah, okay, I'm sorry. We talked about Fugazi, and so I thought that we don't that I'd already talked about it. Yeah, all right. Well, I've tipped my hat that I have the same songs for Reckoning. My number three is Marillion's Fugazi, and the two songs I like the most. One of them is Incubus. Wah, wah, and then Fugazi, the title track, where is about how totally effed up the world is. Okay, so we said enough about it, and I said enough about it then. But yes, Fugazi, Incubus, and Fugazi from Fugazi.
All right. And so we know you're number two, but before that, I get to say my number three. And this is a bit of a miracle of an album, but Chris Thomas produced Pretenders Learning to Crawl. Yeah, this is after two members of the band died. So it was down to Chrissie Hynde and Martin Chambers. And I think this album surprised everybody. Not that anyone thought they were dead, but well, two members were. I don't mean to make a bad joke there, but Learning to Crawl, which I heard some of these songs in advance at the US Festival in '83. They had the new band debuted there. I don't know if they had done any shows yet. It might have been their first show. Uh, and yeah, the band was great. I do remember Chrissie Hynde forgot the words to one of the songs, and she just told everybody, I forgot the words. But other than that, it was a great set. And I don't remember which songs that they did. I could have gone to Setlist FM and looked it up. But they did. I think my two song choices were performed at that concert. But they had kind of a couple interim bands. It's kind of a weird album in that that they worked initially with Billy Bremner, and so they recorded a couple songs with him. And then they had another band with Paul Carrack and Andrew Bonar, is that his name, from Graham Parker? And they recorded um, a song. And then they got down to their quartet and recorded the rest of the album. So it's one of those albums that sound. Oh, the one they recorded with Paul Carrack and Andrew Bonar is the one song that sounds out of place on the album, but still a great cover. It's a song, A Thin Line Between Love and Hate. I think it's a really good vocal by Chrissie Hynde, but I do feel like it sits apart from the album. And it really does sound like an outlier. But with that aside, I think it's a close to perfect album and I love it. Great playing. The song that you would expect to pick on there is Back on the Chain Gang, but I'm going with Middle of the Road and My City Was Gone,
Mm-hmm.
which has a killer bass line. Two of my favorite songs from the album. Pretenders, Learning to Crawl at number three.
Oh, yeah. Great album, great choices. Well, you already know what my number two is, REM Reckoning. So with South Central Rain and Pretty Persuasion. So let's just move on to your number two.
Oh, okay. Do you have another song you want to pick?
Um,
Don't go
let's see,
back to Rockville.
oh yeah. Let's put Don't Go Back to Rockville on there.
Would that be your third choice, or would it be a different song?
Uh, let me double check and look at it here.
Harbor Coat's a good song too.
I'm going to go with a lesser known one, and that is Seven Chinese Brothers.
Oh,
Seven Chinese Brothers. I love that song.
yeah. Mike Mills played keyboards on that, and that's a really good song. Yeah, it's a little lyrically weird, but I love it.
Well, did you ever read the book?
No.
When I was a child, I had a book about the Seven Chinese Brothers. It was a children's book, and each one had a a special talent, and one of them could drink an infinite amount of water and hold it before he let it go. And that's what it's based on. Seven Chinese brothers swallowing the ocean.
I just had a triggered memory. I told you no, that I had never heard of that book before or read it. But something way back there from childhood, I do believe I was exposed. Do you hear the firecrackers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Mexico, folks. So ruido, loud, noisy. Um, so there's nothing I can do about that. But I do believe I was exposed to that book when I was very young and hadn't thought about it in decades.
Remember the
So,
picture of him with his cheeks all swollen out and everything with all the water in there?
it's a foggy memory. And this one's due to the age I was, not due to any substances. So I have a foggy memory. Wow, Seven Chinese Brothers. Yeah, great song. Well, my number two will only surprise you by its position on my list. You ready?
Yep.
You know I like this album, but I bet you did not guess it would be my number two. This is where I have the Minutemen, double nickels on the dime.
Oh, okay. I wondered when you were going to bring in the Minutemen.
God, I love this album. Love, 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 love this album. It's got like 40 songs on it. And, I was listening to, I know there's the album before and the album afterwards. Albums like Why Does a Man Start Fires or Three-Way Tie for Last. Three-Way Tie for Last coming up in the future, D Boon actually sings. They're good albums, but there's something about this one that just rises above everything else they ever did. It's their magnum opus. So the playing, they're just a trio. They're just a trio, but Mike Watt's bass and George Hurley's drums are just so locked in and so interesting. And then D Boon comes in with these really different guitar colorings that don't sound like anyone else. And then I was reading too that he just turned off all the bass and mid range. on the amplifiers, and his guitar is very trebly, and they have a totally unique sound. They're as unique as, say, Rush or the Police, other trios, or ZZ Top. There are a few trios that manage to sound like nobody else. Produced by Ethan James, who I don't know anything about, but he did a great job on here. SST, again, we talked about the record label. If you haven't heard this album, it's fantastic. You know, it doesn't have a ton of streams. It's still kind of a cult classic. If you haven't heard Minutemen, Double Nickels on the Dime, it's one of the best albums of the 80s, you
And
know?
it is their classic. It's the
Yeah,
peak of their.
probably one of, go ahead.
I just said it's their peak. I mean, I love Three-Way Tie for Last, but Double Nickels on the Dime is my favorite by them.
Yeah. So one of my songs that I picked was Political Song for Michael Jackson to sing. My third choice was Jesus and Tequila. My second choice, wonder if you'll be surprised by this, Toadies.
Oh yeah, Toadies, Toadies. Uh-huh.
I love Toadies. I think Mike Watt wrote that one, but they were different lyrically. D Boon was more political, and Mike Watt was just kind of more silly. And it's a nice balance. They co-wrote a lot of the. They took turns, but sometimes co-wrote. So you had two writers in the band. And Double Nickels on the Dime is absolutely a great album. One of my all-time favorite albums of the 80s. So I bet you didn't know I liked it that much.
No, I didn't. And heartbreakingly, just before they made it big, and they were on the cusp of making it big, um, they were driving up during the Christmas holidays from Tucson to Phoenix, and D Boon's girlfriend's sister fell asleep at the wheel in their van, and the van rolled, and the girls were okay, but Boone broke his neck and died instantly.
Yeah, and I read that the axle broke, the rear axle broke on the van, but either way, he did break his neck. And I remember it was right before Christmas,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we were both bummed out when we heard. Yeah. Because we were having one of our New Year's Eve parties, and it had only been 9 days, and so we talked about it at the party. Uh, yeah. All right. So let's see. You're on your number one now.
Yeah. Prince, Purple Rain, Prince's masterpiece. You know, I'm not putting Prince down, but there are some artists who need somebody to say to them, "Hey, you're going a little weird here." You know, um, you need to pull back and do something else. Prince had no musical filters, and in a way, that was really good. But he made a lot of redundant songs, and especially a few years later, after Sign of the Times, um, Prince once he became a glyph. Once his name disappeared and he became a glyph, he began having uh, on and off. I mean, moments of brilliance and moments of Prince. You could have done a little bit better, in my opinion. But on this one, he was firing on all cylinders. I don't know if it's because he wrote these songs for the movie Purple Rain, but it's just, I mean, it's hard to listen to this album and choose just two great songs from it. Um, so, but I did it, of course. I challenged myself and I did it. There's the single, When Doves Cry, which when we were doing at the beginning of us doing um, New Year's videos, our friend Ralph wanted me to do When Doves Cry. And if
Oh,
anybody has seen the video, Prince goes slithering out of this, hot tub naked. And so Ralph said, get naked and get in the bathtub and make the water as hot as possible. So I was drunk and I did it. But the thing is, we couldn't get the steam. So Gene, who did not smoke cigarettes at the time, had to sit there smoking cigarettes and blowing the smoke in front of the camera to get the steam there. And then I came slithering out of the bathtub with soap bubbles in the crack of my ass. And if if I can find it, maybe I'll give it to Gene and he can post it here. But anyway, that was my parrot. But the song was really great, "When Doves Cry," and the other one is his brilliant, brilliant masterpiece, "Purple Rain," um, which builds almost to a impossible climax. Um, and so when Doves Cry, which is a cool song, and Purple Rain, which is a brilliant song.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that as a video short because if I put that clip on there, I won't be able to monetize this video. It'll be copyright. I'll get a copyright, not a copyright strike, but yeah, if I put 20 seconds of When Doves Cry on this video, it will, unless I mute the audio, but that's not the same. But yeah, I remember that. We were so silly. We just, for the viewers saying, what are they talking about? What are these old guys talking about? Well, we used to have annual New Year's Eve parties, and the day of, when we were preparing, we would just do skits and film them and show them at the party, whether the guests wanted to watch it or not. We would hold them hostage. But anyway, my number one, you guessed it, Purple Rain. So we have the same number one, and this is a lot of people's number one for 84. It's a brilliant album. Is it a perfect album? I would say Darling Nikki is a little bit unnecessarily salacious. Doesn't bother me. The content doesn't bother me. Still a good song. Maybe a slight step down, but boy, everything else on here is perfect. You picked When Doves Cry and what, Purple Rain?
Yeah.
The title track? Yeah. Those are my two picks, and I predicted that you would pick those. So I've already picked a third song to add to the list, but everybody knows Purple Rain, and it was a movie and a pretty good movie. Certainly not much better than the next one, Under the Cherry Moon, which was not a very good movie, but this one was great. And Morris Day, remember he was in that movie? From the time he was great. My third pick is, and you said it, so many great songs, but I'm going to go with the beautiful ones.
Oh, yes, yes.
Do you want me? Do you want him? Yeah, or the other way around. But
and then he
such an
starts
emotional.
screaming. Yeah. He starts
Oh,
doing it.
yeah. Oh, it gives me shivers when I listen to it. It's just so it's both over the top and on point at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
It just works, you know.
I
He's
agree
being
with
dramatic, but it's about I want you and you want him, I think. So let's work this out. And it's the emotion of that, and it's just great. So Purple Rain by Prince and the Revolution at number one for both of us. Wow, we converged.
All right. Okay. Honorable mentions. And all five of these I wanted in my top 10. I ended up with, when I was making my list, I had 25 albums. And the first five, it hurt, but I was able to cut them. The next five, it hurt even worse. And, and I was left with my honorable mentions. One of them is a band on the 4AD label, a very ethereal band, a very ethereal label, and that is the Cocteau Twins with a song. The album is Treasure,
Mm-hmm.
and Ivo is the song that I would choose. And Beth Gibbons, she was the singer, right? No, she was the singer for I can't remember her name. Anyway, she had a beautiful voice, and she often just sang nonsense sounds. But Ivo is my favorite one. Um, Talking Heads, Stop Making Sense. I chose Girlfriend is Better. Just, I agreed. It was, the best. It's a, and plus they got the name of the album from, Stop Making Sense from Girlfriend is Better. XTC, The Big Express, and with their single, All You Pretty Girls. Bless you, all of the pretty girls. And so this was really defining the XTC sound. Um, and this album was a bit more, I don't, industrial isn't the right one, but machine like. Um, but it's still a very pleasant album. Pretenders, Learning to Crawl with Back on the Chain Gang. And then you guys, if you've been watching, you know that I'm a huge fan of Peter Hamill and his sometimes on again, sometimes off again band Vandergraaf Generator. Peter Hamill has been around long enough to experiment. And this experiment shouldn't have worked, but it did. He took over his career, over a how many years? About 15-year career. He chose the love songs and he re-recorded all of them. And he added really nice some string arrangements to some of them, but they're not sappy. Some of the songs are pretty, but they were on weird, strange albums. But here, like for instance, the song I chose, If I Could, I'll tell you if I could. I'd tell you if I could. That's from the album that oh man, it has Pushing 30 on it. And that's anyway, it'll come back to me. But it's the one where he shaved half of his face. Um, and and it has a lot of weird songs, but If I Could is a pretty one. But here, If I Could is definitely beautiful. It's one of the songs that convinced Cindy to like Peter Hamill as a singer. So Peter Hamill, the love songs, If I Could.
Wow. Interesting honorable mentions. Yeah, those are some surprised me, some didn't. Well, I don't know. I guess none of them surprised me, but uh, mine are I got in my five honorable mentions, I got four of these got 5 stars on All Music. Yeah, they didn't make my top 10. I think you're really going to be surprised that two of these are in my honorable mentions and not in my top 10. One is U2, The Unforgettable Fire. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm the bigger U2 fan. We saw that tour. It was
Hmm.
fantastic. Um, and I love this album. I just think it's a little less than perfect. Uh, All Music gives it 4 stars. To me, it's 4.5 star album. And I like it a lot. But I wanted, going through my top 10 with Meat Puppets and Los Lobos and Van Morrison and Marillion, it got squeezed out. So that's probably my number 11 pick. And then the 5 star albums that are on my honorable mentions, you mentioned two of them, Husker Du, Zen Arcade. Uh, love love that album, but I think they would get better, in my opinion. But I still like Zen Arcade enough to put it in my honorable mentions. I also like a Grant Hart song a lot called Pink Turns to Blue. So I think I'm going to put that one on the honorable mentions list. Backing up on the U2, I wonder what song I'm going to put. Maybe the title track, The Unforgettable Fire. That's a really
Yeah.
good song. Yeah, I'll probably put that on our honorable mentions list. And Zen Arcade, I'm going to put Pink Turns to Blue, a great, um, because I like chartered trips, turn on the news or turn off the news or turn on the news.
Turn on the news.
And Pink Turns to Blue. And you know what other song I really like from here? You'll be surprised. But I like the 14-minute jam at the end. Recurring Dreams, what was it called?
Yeah. Dreams recurring. There's a song called
Dreams Recurring.
Recurring. This is Dreams Recurring.
Oh, that's just whacked out, but great playing. Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that last track on there. It's great. Um, the other one, which might surprise you, it didn't make my top 10, but Bruce Springsteen, the E Street Band, Born in the USA, uh, has some of my
I
favorite.
understand why.
Yeah, it's got some of my favorite, and one thing I try to do, okay, I always try to put an album in isolation and not in context. Because one thing that always bothers me about critical reviews is people will say, oh, he's repeating themes that he's done before, that kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about. And yet, I think that's how I feel about this. I feel like lyrically, lyrically is why I'm docking this album. It's great musically, and I love songs. There's songs like "I'm on Fire." That's one of my favorite Bruce Springsteen songs. Love it. I love "Dancing in the Dark" and "Born in the USA." Um, but there's a couple songs on here that are, you know, old hat for Springsteen. But if this had come out of a vacuum and we had never heard Bruce Springsteen before in our lives, we would say, wow, what a major talent. So maybe I'm not being fair to the album. But anyway, it's still in my honorable mentions. Um, the Replacements, Let It Be, critically loved and praised album. I really like Let It Be, but I think the Replacements would get better. I think this is a warm up for their next album. It's like a
Yeah.
4.5 star album to me, but it's still a little bit punky, sloppy, a little bit. They didn't really hit their stride yet, I don't think. So it's a little less than perfect album, but I still love Let It Be. And then I had to get the Smiths on here. This was the year of the debut for the Smiths, but I'm going to go with a different album. And technically, it's a compilation. It was called Hatful of Hollow.
It was one of the ones
What
I cut.
happens? What's that? Yeah.
It was my number 16.
What happens when you put out a compilation the same year as your debut? I don't think it's really a compilation. And I think I'm allowed to cheat here because it's it's just a compilation of songs from 83 and 84, many of them performed on John Peel's show for the BBC. And it's really close between this one and the Smiths' debut. They're really close neck and neck. So why did I pick Hatful of Hollow? Simple. Has my favorite Smiths song on it. How Soon Is Now. So
I
I
knew
got it.
it. I knew it. Yeah.
What's that?
I said, I knew it. I knew that you were going to choose How Soon Is Now. I would too.
That's a brilliant song. And yeah, Morrissey is one of the, he is a completely unique lyricist. Absolutely. And if a double decker bus crashed and the two of us died, it'd be my pleasure to be. It's just like his lyrics. No one writes lyrics like Morrissey. And I think where I differ with some people, I don't know how you feel about this. There's a lot of pain in Morrissey's lyrics, but I think he's very funny. Do you agree?
Sardonic. Yes, he has a sardonic sense of humor.
Some people don't hear him as funny.
Oh, he in the song "The Queen Is Dead" from a future album, the Queen comes into the palace, I mean into the palace, and she hears him um, singing, and she criticizes his singing, and he said, "You should hear me play the piano."
Yeah. So those are my five honorable mentions. Any surprises in that list?
No, those are great, and I'm glad that you chose some of those so we could get some of those songs in there. By the way, my brain farts cleared. The first one was the singer for Cocteau Twins. That was Elizabeth Fraser.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, Elizabeth Fraser was the singer for the Cocteau Twins. And the Peter Hamill album was The Future Now.
Yeah. I couldn't think of either one, too. Beth Gibbons, of course, was in Portishead,
That's right.
and it's easy to get those mixed up a little bit. So, yeah. Now, is Treasure, is that the album that has Lorelei on it?
Yeah.
Because that would be most people's pick. So I'm anxious to hear Ivo. And yeah, absolutely. Well, you want to talk about who you've seen in concert?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do this here. Hold on. Okay. Uh, never saw the Police. Saw wait, I got the wrong one. Okay. Husker Du, great show. You went with me. They put on a fantastic show on their final tour. And that's when we met them, and Bob Mould convinced me not to kill myself. Uh, never did see the Minutemen, which is a shame. I wish I could have. By the way, I want to tell you something about the Minutemen. If you look at pictures of them, they look completely different from 6 month to 6 month because once their hair would get woolly, they would shave. All three of them would shave their heads, and then they would grow it out again. But I never saw them. Never saw Lloyd Cole. I don't think he's ever come to the United States. Never saw Julian Cope. Seen Bruce Springsteen multiple times, including on the Born on the USA tour. Seen U2 several times, including on the Unforgettable Fire tour. Seen Van Morrison um, a number of times. Uh, Marillion. Never saw them with Fish, but I've made up for that with the times I've seen them with H. And you know, I know that a lot of people are Fish loyalists, but come on, that's like saying that you like AC/DC and that your favorite AC/DC is with Bon Scott as the singer. I mean, he's been dead for so long, you know. Steve Hogarth is a much more expressive singer than Fish, but I love them both. REM, seen them a couple times, and Prince, never saw him in concert. Uh, not the Cocteau Twins, but Talking Heads on the Stop Making Sense tour. Never saw XTC, which you did before Andy Partridge's stage fright got the better of him. Saw the Pretenders with you. I went with you and saw them, and I'm sure glad I did. And I got to see Peter Hamill at a small venue called the Rhythm Room, and got to meet him. And he's just such a mensch. You know, I've told you before how he sent me a multi-disc set of his live stuff when he found out I couldn't get it for my birthday. And I wasn't begging him, I was just asking him where I could find it, and he sent it to me free. So, you know.
Wow. When we saw the Pretenders, was that the show with the alarm
Was it was in a stadium?
activity center,
Yeah,
ASU Activity Center? We saw the opening band was the Alarm, and Mike Peters passed away this year. And I mentioned that because back in '83 and '84, I was a huge Alarm fan and Big Country fan. And I still really like those two bands, but I liked them more then than I do now. They've been supplanted by other people. All right, well, my list is going to be loaded because we're now in the '80s, and I saw a lot of concerts in the '80s. So, you ready? I mean, this isn't supposed to be bragging, but these are just, I've seen most of the people on here. So, I've seen Prince twice, The Pretenders 3 times, REM 4 times, Van Morrison twice, Talking Heads twice, Los Lobos 5 times, Meat Puppets 9 times. Yeah, they have the record 9 times. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble 3 times. U2 8 times. Husker Du once, which, by the way, that show was an all ages show at a club in Chandler, Arizona called Prisms, which was later turned into a Peter Piper pizza joint. I saw the
There,
Replacements once on their last tour. I saw Springsteen 4 times. I never saw the Smiths. However, my then wife, former wife, won tickets from New Times to go see Morrissey in Las Vegas. So we drove all the way up there. She won 2 tickets and a night at the Cosmopolitan Hotel. So we drove up, saw Morrissey, drove back the next day. We
didn't
just
she
went
also
up there.
she won a night with Morrissey, didn't she?
Well, she
Which is
wishes
why she,
probably.
which is why she's your ex-wife, because you know.
Yeah, well, we'll see what Morrissey thinks about that. I think he's got different taste.
I
But
think so too.
yeah.
He would
Anyway,
rather have slept with you.
yeah, it was interesting, and I talked to a guy at that show who was following Morrissey. You hear about this? Like Deadheads would follow. He was
Well,
following Morrissey and had seen every single show and was just following him on the road. He was a really sharp guy, really interesting, but I don't know if I would do that. But anyway, so yeah, that this probably is going to be the most loaded year for people I've seen in concert. I don't think I'm going to be able to talk like this on future episodes. I think my shows are going to start to go down a little bit. But yeah, you got people like the Meat Puppets that I've seen. I shouldn't call them the Meat Puppets. It's just Meat Puppets, but 9 times. And yeah, they always put on a different show. They were never the same band twice. So, well, that's it. Pretty good year, I guess.
it was.
So, any last minute comments?
Just know that sorry, can't. I'm dead.
Reminds me a little bit of you could almost put Kenny from South Park on there.
Yes.
It'd
Oh
still
my
be a
God,
funny
they killed
shoot.
Kenny. You bastard.
Okay, well, you got a salutation for the
Uh,
viewers?
welcome to 2026. Look forward to sharing with you in another week.
Okay, we'll do 85. And as we say here in Bonita, Mexico, buen dia.